If you think I need you, come on over.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Under the Fella. My name is Tisha.
My name is Betta.
And I'm Lita. And today, as you may have seen in our stories, the topic for our episode is men's mental health. So we have a very special guest joining us for today's potty, which we will introduce to you shortly. But just before we do, we wanted to talk a little bit about why we've chosen men's mental health as a topic. You may know of someone, or you yourself might be struggling with mental health. And it's not that we only want to focus on men's mental health, but we have seen it grow quite a bit in recent times. It is such a broad topic. There's so much to cover, so we obviously won't be getting it all done in this episode, but hopefully we'll be able to enlighten you all and also get people talking about it. Funnily enough, when every time we are about to release an episode, we post up stories, and this, I think, has been, we've gotten the least interactions, which kind of is a statistic in itself. So hopefully we'll be able to break down some barriers and get people talking. So what we're going to do is we're going to hand the time over to Peter, who's going to introduce our special guest today.
All right, guys, I'm so excited to introduce him. He's a very, very dear friend of ours. We've grown up together. This special guest that we're having on today, not only is he a role model and advocate for mental health, he is a husband, a father, and a multinational award-winning barber. I should say he's a son and a brother too, because he has a lot of sisters and a lot of brothers as well. He's also the very first Pacific Islander representative in the Hastings District Council of New Zealand. I know before, when we started to discuss men's mental health, I knew 100% that this was the person that we needed to get on. Like we said, we're not just here to talk about things under the rug, but we're here to actually help people find solutions or just other options that are available, or resources that are available to them or to you. So without further ado, I would like to officially introduce our special guest today, Peleti Oli. Exciting!
Thank you. Thanks, Betta.
It's okay. Just before we get into any other questions and all the hard stuff, just if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm honored to be on this platform to share my story and hopefully inspire other people. Yeah, I'm Samoan, born in Savaii. We moved to New Zealand, for a better opportunity. Moved to Flaxmere, which is in Hastings. And yeah, that's where we grew up. Grew up around the corner from Betta and their family. Went to church. Went to Hastings Boys High School, which is not far from our neighborhood. And the same old, into sports and whatnot. But I had an interest in cutting hair, so I've long story short, I've become a barber and been able to leverage off the barbershop and connect with people through that journey. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of mental health. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at now. I have a beautiful wife, Johnny Kaiwai. She's from Gisborne, and our 3 boys, Tai Crow, the youngest, Some, and then Josiah. So that's me. We live in Hastings. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity, sisters.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. So what kind of, you started off saying that the barbershop has given you opportunities to kind of branch out and do other things. What kind of started your journey in mental health, or wanting to, I guess, advocate for mental health?
Yeah. I don't want to get into the story too long because it's a long story. So I'll just segue into certain points of my journey. Growing up in Hastings, Flaxmere, it's a low decile area. So some people would call it the hood. So there's not a lot of opportunity around. So being a Pacific Islander, a Samoan, you have to kind of find your own opportunities, if that makes sense. Everyone understands, the obvious challenges of having strict parents who are very traditional. For me, I I found a lot of safety with my friends at school. So I didn't do too well at school, but one of my friends looked at my hair and he was like, "Hey, bro, your hair will look cool with a fade." And that's where I started. That's where I was introduced. Was my friend who was Māori from Huntley, which is further up north, and we went to his house. He gave me a haircut. Then I cut his hair, which was really cool because not a lot of times I get to learn something and really enjoy it with my relationship with my parents or my dad. Usually the conversation is just, go get me this, go get me that, or it's a growling. So being able to have a friend who taught me something, a skill, was very powerful. So I was able to learn barbering and then eventually opened our own shop. But before the shop, I lost my friend who taught me how to cut hair. His name was John Whenui. He had an argument with the mother of his children, and she was he drove around looking for her and found her with another guy. So she was cheating on him. So he decided to just start driving around and eventually crashed into the Hastings Library and died at the scene. The other connection to my barber journey is I taught my younger brother Some, and Some took his life in 2012. So the connection for me with barbering is the topic that is very taboo and very, very dangerous is that word suicide. So that's where my journey began, was trying to figure out all these unanswered questions that were lurking in my mind. Why did they go? And there's a lot of unanswered questions, but that's where my journey with mental health started.
Wow. Crazy. And that,
Yeah.
but is it like, sorry?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So that's where the name of your barbershop comes from. Is there?
Yeah.
So Some is your brother?
Some is my brother, and then John Whenui is the guy that taught me. So he's from school.
So is there a meaning behind, so it's Some is touch barber, yes?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I felt, because my brother lost his life through suicide, a lot of people, I found that a lot of people really kind of like looked down and frowned upon that situation. They called him a coward, selfish, running away from his problems, and that was the label that was attached to the word suicide, and I started calling it the S word. So because my brother, died through suicide, I wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted to give him his story back, because to us, his family, he was handsome, he was talented, he was funny, just a cool character. He loved children, and like all the other people who have lost their lives through suicide, they were loved by their own families, but because of that last moment of their life, people focused on that more than their actual life. So I saw the barbershop as an opportunity to be able to give my brother his story back, give my friend John Whenui his mana back, and be able to reflect on the positives that they had in their lives, rather than just that last moment of darkness and depression. And yeah, so when my brother Some used to cut my hair, I can still remember the gentle touch he had on my head. And so that touch, is what I wanted to give everyone else. So each haircut that I give is a piece of my brother and my friend John Whenui. And also not only the service, but the conversation where I'm going to get into the reason why. Because when my brother died, I felt it was my fault. I felt, me being the older brother, obviously in our Samoan culture, we have to be the protectors of our siblings. Hey, if you get into trouble, I've got your back. So because he died, I felt like I had failed him, and I really went into a depressed state where I started, taking it out on my partner at the time, which is now my wife, and I really treated her like, can we swear on here? Yes, no? Okay, no, okay. Okay, so I really treated her like trash. I really was an a-hole to her because of all of my emotions of losing my brother and anger and frustration I took out on her. So eventually she left after the funeral. So for me, during that time when everyone was coming for the service and for the funeral of my brother Somi, they all wanted haircuts. And I'm like, bro, can't you see I'm trying to mourn my brother just died. The last thing I want to do is give you guys freaking haircuts, because there was like heaps of them just waiting in the room. So I vowed to everyone in the room, I'm like, hey, I'm telling you guys now, these are the last haircuts you guys are going to get from me, because I'm over it, I don't want to do this no more. Funny enough, as soon as I turned on the clippers and started cutting the first person, it felt like I had stumbled or fallen into this place, which now I call my solace or my place of peace, or I felt really at peace when I was cutting the person's hair, where I could get creative, where I can kind of be alone to my thoughts, even though the world in the outside, or in real life, was upside down and painful and negative. I felt like when those clippers were in my hand, I was at peace with myself. Yeah. I called it my happy place. Also, the other thing was the realization of being able to influence this person sitting in my chair in a positive way or a bad way. So have you guys had bad haircuts before?
Oh, yeah.
How did that make you feel?
I never went back, to be honest.
I just looked at my bank account like, wasted that.
Yeah, it just makes you feel bad. It ruins your day. But if I gave this person in my chair the best haircut and the best experience that they've ever had, then that'll make a world such a better place. So understanding that through the power of cutting hair is something that I really hung on to, because I wanted to commit suicide after losing my brother, because I have had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of I felt like I went into a depressed state, if I can be real. Started drinking, smoking, just partying all the time. Doing drugs. So that was a dark time in my life, but the only thing positive that was going for me was cutting hair. So I can honestly say, barbering saved my life. So that's where realizing one haircut at a time, I can make the world a better place. Yeah.
I love that. That's like one haircut at a time, I can make the world a better place.
Yeah.
I love that you found it as an escape, from the outside world. Like that was your thing, that was your bubble, and that was what kind of kept you going. And I think because obviously, we've gone and got our hair done before, and sitting in that chair, it's almost as if like I could go to a hairdresser for the very first time, and I could tell her like my deepest, darkest secret. I don't know what it is about sitting in someone's chair. You do tend to confide in them. And so you as a barber, obviously you turn into like a priest, a therapist, you get all these new hats from being a barber. And I love that you've used that as a platform to be able to, I guess, share your journey or to talk it out with people, which is really cool. A little something about you following, is it Matt Brown, a barber that you came across, which you kind of bounced off, is that right? Are you able to tell us just a little bit about that?
Matt Brown, he's the person that really set the tone for me as to where I am today. So I pay a lot of credit to him and his wife. It was funny because I'd never heard of him. I thought, because I love, my passion is doing hair art. Like haircuts are cool, but doing designs in that in kids' heads is what I love doing the most. So I thought I was the only one doing it, because YouTube wasn't around back then when I was cutting, right? But then when I was cutting one of the the bro's hair, they turned around and like, bro, do you know Matt Brown? He does, you know, really cool haircuts as well. So I looked them up on Facebook and social media, and I seen them on YouTube, and I'm like, frick, this guy's amazing, you know. But then he also shared a video that really, really struck me. In the video, he was talking about how he was raped by his uncle, who was the church minister, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy's really sharing his, you know, and he's Samoan. And that really stumbled me, because, you know, we all know we're not allowed to talk like that.
Yeah.
But that really made me question, like, how does this guy have the strength to be able to just share it like that, and on a video and on YouTube? And I'm like, this guy really inspired me. So I reached out to him, because for me, if I take it back a few years, when I was about four, I was molested by one of my dad's nephews who was living with us at the time. You know, we always have those family members that come and live with you. And yeah, I was molested when I was 4, and then not long after that, I think a few years later, mum was dropping off dad's drunken mates, because that's what she always does. And I always go for a ride with mum, because I would stay awake because I'm, you know, nosy. And then I think I was about 6, and yeah, went for a ride with mum. I'll get back to Matt's story. I'm just trying to connect. But went for a ride with mum in the car, and I was in the front seat, and uncle was in the back seat, and he called me to the back seat. So I trusted him, right? Because we call him uncle. And yeah, next minute he's got his hands down my pants, you know, like masturbating me, you know, if I use the words. And it felt weird, because obviously he was a male, but my mum was only a few, you know, just inches away from me. And I was so young, but so scared, that I felt like if I yelled out to mum, I would get in trouble. Like, there was something so weird in my mind at such a young age, that even though this guy was doing this to me, to my body, mum was right there, and I felt like I had lost my voice. And I felt like the monster or the bully would, I don't know, it was just a weird feeling. And I had held that secret for a long time, and all I could remember was looking out the window and waiting to arrive at uncle's house, because I knew where he lived, because we drove there all the time. And as soon as we got to the house, I knew it was over. And then he jumped out, and I jumped back in the front seat and didn't say anything to my mum. And I held that secret. I didn't tell anyone until after I seen Matt's story. But I didn't, you know, I just knew I needed to go and be with Matt. So there was an opportunity where Matt gave me a job as a barber to go and work in his barber shop. And through that time while I was down there, he really, really had, you know, some really cool conversations where, yeah, I could have the opportunity to share my story. But this is the kicker. The night before I flew down for the opening the next day, he said, hey, we're going to give you the opportunity to share your story and tell us who you are. It's going to be packed. And I asked him, what do you want me to say? And he said, just be real, brother. Just be real. And I'm like, be real. Okay, then cool. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be real. So we had the barbers, and the barber shop was packed. Everyone was sharing, you know, hey, my name is this, I'm from that. And I was waiting for the mic to get to me. And as soon as the mic came to me, I'd never shared the story before, but I remember I watched this video on YouTube. And the first thing I said was, hi, I'm Peleti Oli, I'm from Flaxmere, and I was molested when I was 4 years old. The whole room was like, and I saw their faces just go, yeah, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I've got, you know, this is what happened to me, and da-da-da-da-da. And then after I shared my story, everyone was like, just clapping. And that was the first time I realized the power of just sharing it.
How did it make
Because
you feel?
Yeah, it made me feel powerful. It felt like I was slowly getting my power back and my voice back, because remember when uncle had his hand over me, I couldn't shout out to my mum. But because I was sharing it to a room full of strangers, I didn't care, you know? Yeah. So it was easier for me to share with strangers than it was for me to share with my parents. or my brothers or my siblings. So the first people that I was able to share my trauma with was everyone that was at the opening, you know. So it was really empowering for me to do that just because of Matt's example. So in terms of barbering and my career and my healing process, I really am grateful to Matt Brown and his wife for the opportunity for me to grow and to find that strength. So now, anytime anyone asks that question, I'm just like, hey, I'm Peleti, and I was molested too, bro. so it makes it normal for us to just be, you know, talking about that subject. And when people look at me, you know, you wouldn't think I'd be sharing something like that or even experience something like that. So yeah, that's where it started, was with Matt. So thank you for that question, Paul. That was cool.
Awesome. Oh man, I think just the way you share it, like normally it's such an emotional topic or such a, I don't know, like traumatizing event in your life, but for some reason, like the way you share it, it just feels empowering, like how you've shared it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of your customers must feel that same kind of comfort. I don't know, you're right. There's something about sharing the most personal things with strangers. Like, you can't turn around and talk to your sister about it, but man, you'll talk to a complete stranger at a salon or a barber. I think it's like
I'll just answer the question in case I forget. But yeah, for me, when it comes to people, my clients that sit in the chair, I need to learn to kind of like just stop and listen, because I got to remember that it's hard for them to be able to just, oh yeah, this happened to me. So I got to remember that, because for me, because of my sharing, it's made it easy, and it's made me more powerful. So there is a lot of power in being vulnerable. There's a lot of, man, growing when you make yourself vulnerable, because the reason why I feel it's because you got nothing to hide, you know, like you got no more skeletons in your closet, you know. I'm being as real as I can be. Like, what does that make you, you know? That's the influence that I try and put on people, not to be like, you know, let my fall and just share, but I have to really choose my moments and choose my scenario, or like situation or setting where I get to really talk like that. So when my clients are sharing, I have to like kind of like back off and promote. I can feel when they don't want to share, so I'm like, cool, no worries. And it's not my goal to get it all out of them. It's just I want to create that safe space for them to feel comfortable to be able to, oh, hang on, I might just share one day. If I can share a little moment with one of my good close friends, he was in the church 12 years. They were married in the temple. And he came in one day, and I knew this time was different. And his story is on our documentary, but I'll share it on here. Usually we're always laughing at our appointments, but this time he was really different. So I knew this time, okay, cool, this is one of those moments. Son, can you close the door, please?
Okay, Dad.
And then close the door and keep it down, because I'm on this. And I grew up with this guy. And yeah, straight away, I didn't even have to say it because we had our conversations before, but his wife had left him. His wife had left him for another guy, you know, blah, blah, blah. And apparently this guy is one of my clients. And it really hit me. That's such a hard thing to go through, you know, the love of your life, 12 years, couple of kids, those kind of situations where I have to really, I struggle sometimes to, you know, don't get me wrong, I don't have all the answers. I just like to make it safe enough for everyone to be able to feel like they can let it out. Yeah. And trust me that I won't share. You know, that's the number one thing. As a barber, you gotta, you know, you can't go and share this information with other people. You know, you gotta be discreet about it, or else, you know, people will find out and you'll lose your credibility. So it's a
That's the whole thing. Like, you know, like you said, you want to create a safe space, and safe space means private and confidential. It's not like, oh, it's safe here, but it's going to go out somewhere else. I just want to take it back a little bit more, just because I was really interested in the fact that we're so comfortable talking to strangers about it. But I want to hear your story about how you started to talk to mum and dad about it. Like,
Ooh,
I know
yeah.
your mum and dad, and I even knew, like, when you were saying you couldn't say anything to mum at the time, but I knew hands down if you had told her, her reaction would have been a loving, caring mum. But it was so hard for you to get that because you didn't have a voice. You know?
Yeah,
And
that
I
was,
want to hear that.
yeah, cool. There's a sad ending.
It's good to know because
But thanks for the, first I had to share it with my siblings. I knew mum and dad was like the last level. So there were moments where I'm like, okay, cool, I need to share this with my siblings because, you know, they're my siblings. One time I was drinking with my brother and, you know, I just had the urge because me and him were chilling, and then I just told him, hey, you know, and it started just coming out. And like, I felt like he already knew because of his body language. Yeah, but then as soon as I started sharing it, he started getting angry and was like, where does he live? Mother, you know, like, so that was like, I felt really light to be able to be real with my brother because a lot of the times we put the mask on. That's it. Matt Brown always mentions that, like, we're all walking around with masks, but when you start sharing, that mask is slowly removed. It's not to kind of like put all your dirty laundry out there. It's just to just get it off your conscience, get it off your shoulders. But it has to be the right setting, the right people. But yeah, there was this is the story with my parents. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching. But my youngest sister, I got a message from her because she wasn't allowed a phone at the time. And she was at seminary. She was flicking me these messages from other people's, you know, from her Facebook account, but she was using her friends' phones. And I was getting these random messages from her, like, hey, can I talk to you? So I went to meet up with my sister. And I knew, I had a feeling it was bad because she wanted to see me, you know, in person. So I went over, she came to the school office. And as soon as she saw me, she just started, I gave her a hug and she broke down and cried. And I'm like, okay, then cool. I'm not ready for this because, you know, I have to be the strong, you know, brother. But I knew I had to listen. And she said, the uncle that they picked up from Auckland, when they traveled back together, because my mum went and picked up one of her long lost cousins, you know, those ones. And he wanted to come and move to Hastings to work in the orchards. But what my sister said was, you know, the uncle that they went to pick up from Auckland, well, on the way down from Auckland in the van, he was feeling her up on the way down from Auckland. So I'm like, oh, you know, like, man. And my heart just sunk because this happens too often. And straight away I believed it because I've been through it. So I just told her, I said, okay, cool, you're coming with me? I told the teacher, no, she's coming with me. I took her to my house, and then I just rang my mum and told her, you know, Emily's with me. So I told Emily, what time does that guy finish work? And she said 5 o'clock. So we waited around till 5 o'clock. So we drove over to Mum's house, and I told my sister, I said, do you want to watch? She said, yeah. So I just walked up to the house. As soon as I saw him, I just gave him a hiding. And my mum was confused because, you know, obviously she didn't know what happened. And I was just angry. So I told Mum, Emily's living with me. And after we left, Mum sent this big message and said, you need to bring Emily back so we can sit down and have a kalangoanga, you know. As soon as so I took her back, we all sat down, and, you know, I have to protect my sister because I know how my dad is. He's very violent. Sorry, Dad, but yeah, he's an angry guy. And as soon as we sat down, Dad's there, and the first thing Dad says was, you're the reason why this family, you know, he's pointed at my sister Emily, you're the reason why this family is falling apart, you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, and he starts pointing to the guy and he goes, this guy will never do this. He's married, you know, and then straight away he starts blaming my younger sister that this guy, you know, the long lost cousin we've never met, this guy would never do that because he's married and he's older, and why would he do that? And then it just frustrated me as a adult because I had been through it too. So I felt like that was my moment. And I said, Dad, I believe her. You know, I believe her. The reason why I believe her is because it happened to me too. And that was my moment, right? And I said, Dad, do you remember your friend? Said his name. He molested me in the back of the car, And I was really, like I had my wife there, I had my kids there, because it was a difficult moment for me. And I felt like I was, finally, this is my moment to tell my parents, and the thing that crushed my heart was my mum's reaction. And she said, you waited all this time and now you want to open your mouth? But what do you want us to do? And that's when I just sat back and I'm like, oh, you know what? No, don't worry about it. So I just grabbed my wife, grabbed my kids, and we just went home, let them deal with that. And yeah, that really broke my heart was, all those years I wondered, what if I did yell out to my mum? What would mum have done? I'm not blaming my mum. I'm not blaming my parents. That was just the big void in my life where this, predator was, molesting me. And all I wanted to do was reach out to my mum so I could feel safe. And I held on to that secret all my life, right up until now. I'm a fully grown man with a family. And then my moment to actually share with my mum and my whole family, just came tumbling back down, just thrown back in my face. Like, why didn't you whaamanga your mouth back then, What are we going to do about it now? So that's where my passion was refueled. And I realized this is why my brother Some couldn't open up to us. This is why we had to he was wearing a mask and he felt like he couldn't confide in us with his problems to be able to share how he really felt. Like, imagine if my brother could just be like, hey, Uso, I'm feeling sad. Do you think we can just have a conversation? And that simple thing may have saved his life, may have saved a lot of our lost loved ones' lives who just needed that sense of security, that feeling of feeling safe. And that's why I always try and establish that in my barbershop is a safe place for them just to share. I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but to be able to create that spark where they can feel empowered, like I felt empowered, sharing to the strangers in Christchurch. That's the hope that I have for the rest of the world. Even though our families might not hear us, maybe someone will. So, yeah.
That's the sad truth of it also, that other people are more willing to believe our stories or to listen to our stories. And it's within our own homes where we should feel the safest that sometimes we don't. And that's heartbreaking. It is. I can understand why your heart would be so crushed. Like, just hearing it from you, like, my heart is like that's a lot of the reasons why we can't even tell our parents anything. Like, especially the important things or the things that hurt us the most, because we know what we're going to get. It's going to be like, like they just, it's, toughen up. Like, don't cry about.
It's swept under the rug.
Correct. Exactly. Swept under the rug. And that's, man. And just what you said before about Some, not like if he was to ask you to have a conversation, like, and I think that's one of the main reasons as to why we kind of wanted to do this particular episode is, as a man yourself, a Polynesian man, like, what do you think the reasons are behind men not being able to ask for help, or ask to have those conversations, to even reach out to a brother they trust, or to their baba, or to their wives, to their sisters? Why is it so hard for them to just initiate the conversation, like, hey, I'm feeling this type of way, man, but can we just talk about it?
I feel it's the influences, like the pressure of, okay, I'm the provider. I need to, have a job. I need to make this, much money. I need to be, I need to be riding a flash motorbike. I need to be wearing these kind of shoes. Like, the pressure of trying to uphold a standard for men is very difficult to expose. Like, let's say, okay, if all the men were like, just to come out and say, actually, these Jordans are fake, you know, like, actually, I don't have a full-time job. I'm actually on the benefit. And that's my truth. Like, if we were all to be able to just do that, like, all that pressure and stress would be gone. But I think the pressure of just upholding and keeping that mask up is what really gets us, you know, to the point where, you know, we'll just keep doing it for so long. But yeah, I feel, if I can answer that in a more positive light, maybe they haven't had the opportunity or the conversation or the tools, the right tools, to be able to recognize that they need help. Because a lot of the times our parents, it's either their way or the highway. No, our way back at home is how it goes. Like, maybe they didn't have a different opinion or a different perspective. For us, we're really lucky because we did go to school here. We see our Palangi friends and how they live. Like, we get to see a different perspective. For them, you know, it's straight from the island, straight here. And like, when we're at home, you're not allowed to speak English, you know, cross your legs, wear your ear. Like, you know, that's just the way that they try and force us, which I love, because that's keeping our culture. But at the same time, you know, it's like almost robotic. You know, when you go to like a funeral or a 21st or a wedding, it's the same events that they, you know, that they do. And I feel like that's the same way that they teach us as kids. Like, I would have loved if mum and dad just came up to you and just gave you a random hug and said, I love you. You know, I try and do that all the time with my kids. I'm not saying my parents didn't do a good job, man. I love that I'm, you know, can speak Samoan. I love that I can, you know, resonate. But the only thing for my parents is I forgive them. I forgive them because those are the only tools that they had, and they did very well with them. And so I acknowledge and honor them for that. But for our men, it's very difficult because, you know, the pressures of the influence on the outside. Yeah, they'll hold their breath until they, you know, they suffocate. So yeah, that's my answer for that.
You're not wrong.
I really want to, because a lot of our viewers, Peleti, a lot of them are women at the moment, and a lot of people who are responding are women. We even had someone ask us why we're going to be doing men's mental health. And I know that your wife has played a huge part in your life. And I want to recognize that, just because I want your perspective on how us as women, as wives, as, you know, mothers and daughters, sisters, like what are the things that we can do to help our men?
Like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you said that. The reason why I'm still here is my wife. She came back and yeah, accepted my offer to try and make it work, because she left me for 3 years after my brother's funeral, and that's where I, you know, went off into the world and did whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to be honest with you guys. I have other kids to my previous relationships. So I have 9 kids all up, 3 to my wife, and then, yeah, my other kids to other women. So for me to be able to answer that question, I might be the wrong person to ask, but I'll answer through my experience and how my wife, she's got a big heart, and how she helped me was she gave me an ultimatum, if I could put it that way. Quick, son, really. And now, close, hurry. Sorry, it's my son. I was still drinking and smoking, and she really enforced the value of being a family and putting my kids first before my own interests. So I had no intention of quitting drinking and going back to church and stuff. I'm not saying church is the answer. I'm just saying that was her way of making me wake up. And she said, if I don't change soon, she's going to leave me. And she meant it this time. She said it before, but this time I knew she meant it. So she really, really put her foot down. And yeah, I thank her for that, because now I've been free of alcohol and cigarettes for over a year. And it's really changed me. I'm starting to I've spent a lot more time with my kids, trying to prioritize my family rather than my work schedule. But for you as women, communication is a big one. Maybe try and do things differently, instead of just the same thing. Maybe create your own safe space at home where you guys can be like, okay, this is the time where we're going to have, free for all questions. Okay, I'm going to write down a couple of questions that I've always wanted to ask you, and then you can do the same. Maybe that might be a little conversation starter. Create your own little hot seat at home. Here's one thing that we do at with Men's Medicine. I belong to a group called Men's Medicine, created by our Tongan brother Lino Hola. He's based in the GC, and he does hold walks. This experience was amazing, and Matt ran a seminar for barbers where he invited Lino, and this is where I was pretty much converted to it. But there's an exercise that we do. I encourage you guys, or women, to get your partner, whoever's listening, choose your favorite song, maybe a cool song, not a rap song, but like a inspirational song. Sit in front of each other and just look into each other's eyes for the whole song, and then see how you feel. So that'll be my challenge. So that's one of the exercises that we do on the walk, and that's from Lino. So I'm not taking credit for that. That's from our brother Lino from Men's Medicine. So choose your favorite song. Sit down in front of each other, find some time. No kids, like how my kids are running around, and just look into each other. No talking, no touching. Just nice and close, and just look into each other's eyes for the whole duration of that song.
I'm glad Men's Medicine, because I saw one of your episodes that you talk about it, but I started following their page, and I seen they just recently did another workshop for couples, and I'm like,
awesome, eh?
This is so cool. But obviously, I'm not in a relationship right now, but I forwarded it to one of my friends who's just recently been telling me about, like, they've kind of just emotionally, she just feels disconnected. And I told her, I was like, boy, look at this. I was like, to look at Men's Medicine. And she looked it up, and she's been trying to find the time to tell him. He was gaming yesterday, and she was like trying to tell him, and he's like, move. She was like,
time and place. No, not when he's gaming, but when he's gaming.
Like, maybe just wait till after. I was like, no, but maybe pillow talk, but tell him, give it a go. And she's like, oh yeah. But I saw that. Yeah. That looks like a really cool idea, and I love their name.
I want to share. So being part of the crew, we get to bring. So when there is a walk coming up, we get to bring our family or whoever we want to bring onto the walk. So I was able to bring my sisters. And growing up, I knew that my sisters had gone through things, but we never had that conversation, because like, how do we have that conversation? Hey, were you raped too, or were you? You just can't have that conversation. Like, it's just awkward. But I heard things, and so I knew my sisters had been going through a lot throughout their lives, and I felt like this was a cool opportunity for them. So they had seen my journey on the barber episode, and they saw my journey and my shift in my life. So I invited them. So one of my sisters came from Auckland to come on this walk. So we went, and we went through the walk, we went through the exercises, and at the end of our walks, they had the experience, and it was cool. But at the end of it, I had to do the eye gazing with my sisters. So while I was looking at my sister, she said, thank you. She was really saying, thank you so much. And she was like, I feel so free, and I feel so overwhelmed with love and self-love. So it's really, the aim is to, yes, get rid of, you know, the luggage and the baggage and the stuff that's in your closet, but at the same time, on the walk, we really try and promote self-love. That's the main thing. So if you can't really love someone else if you can't love yourself. So that was my biggest problem, was I didn't love myself. And I took it out on my wife all the time. But when I went on this men's medicine walk, it just really changed me and how I viewed my wife, and realizing how much women do for us and our families. You women do so much, and we don't give you enough credit for it. Gaming, nothing against the gamers, but bro, get off the game, man. Like, I understand, like, nothing against the gamers, but yeah, limit your gaming time, man. But yeah, I think my wife's sick of my love and affection, because I try and give it to her every day. It's just really changed me. But yeah, that's one thing. Do that. Yeah, if whoever's watching, please give that a go. And if there is a men's medicine walk coming up, yeah, sign up for it. It's yeah. We're not saying this is the answer. We're just saying these are some tools that you can use to maybe strengthen your relationship with your partner. Yeah.
There's no harm in trying. If you've done everything else, things working, why not?
Yeah. And it's funny because us as islanders or religious people, we don't do, you know, like, we're not used to meditation. We're not used to crystals. We're not used to, you know. For me, when I first done it, I fell asleep when they did the meditation. I was snoring. So
I couldn't meditate.
Yeah. They're like, everyone's meditate. You can lie down or sit up, and I'm like, okay, I'll lie down, and then. So I really had to dig deep and take it serious. So if you are going to go on one of these walks, give it 100, and remember, what you put in is what you get out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just one thing that I did hear you mention in sharing some of your experiences is this whole, well, actually, it's kind of been a bit of a recurring theme, is this whole Me Too narrative, you know, finding the power to speak out because someone else has. Have you found that with sharing your story, people are kind of more, like you say, vulnerable, or more apt to sharing their story or their feelings, or kind of, because, you know, talk about feelings as someone's growing up, not, you know, that's all hushed. And this reaction that you got from your parents when you tried to share yours is such a common reaction. We just did an episode on sex education, educating our children about, you know, boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And we were getting the very same responses that you got. So how, you know, with, I guess, your own circles or your own networks or people, have you found that with, you know, with your sharing, that they've kind of come out a bit?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have watched all the episodes of the Baba documentary, but the very, very last one, where we have church at home during COVID-19, and we were filming, and they wanted to film us having church, a sacrament meeting at home. And that was interesting because the cameras were live and they record your live response. And during that, surprisingly enough, it was my dad. It was my dad that shared this time, and he shared his feelings about, like, he was acknowledging how he always hit us and how he was a bad man back in the day. And we never heard him speak like that before, or even acknowledge, you know, the things that he had done. So I guess because Dad's heard me so many times just sharing and sharing, I think that's where he was actually, hold on, I'm going to just give it a go, and just, like, you know, it was pretty cool. And Mum started sharing too. So I feel Mum and Dad were able to take the opportunity to let out some of, you know, their things that they had been holding on to. So I do feel people, when they see me, they feel like they, you know, because I'm about that, they feel like they can just come up to me and be like, hey, I'll share one that I had last night. I was with my family at the 660 concert, and we were just standing there, just in the at the back, and one of my friends who I had known for a while, he never really spoke to me before, but this time was different. He actually came over to tell me, and he just stood. Usually we shake hands, but this time he shook my hand and he stood next to me and started just talking to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, then cool. So I'm holding the pram and trying to listen to, and he shared with me, he had just, because he was the vice president for, okay, I won't say a gang, but he was the vice president. I won't say the gang, but he said his son asked him if he could hand his patch back, and he was sharing that with me, and I'm like, holy. And then he goes, yeah, brother, I actually want to focus more on my kids. And when my son said that to me, he said, no more, Dad, this isn't you. He actually handed his patch back. And for him to share that with me off the cuff, we'd never had a deep and meaningful conversation before. But like, that was a moment where I felt like, he was actually reaching out. And I'm like, okay, this is one of those moments where I need to be, say the right thing. And I'm like, okay, because he was so, being in the gang, you have to put up your shoulders. You have to show some sense of form. But this time, he was actually talking to me like a brother, and he was sharing how he felt. And I just said to him, I'm really proud of you, bro. I'm really proud of you for doing that. How do you feel? And I feel great. I feel really great. And I'm like, well, I'm proud of you. But at the back of my mind, I knew the conversation was going to end. So I'm going to make sure I tell this guy I love him. I've never had a conversation with him, but I had to make sure that I'm going to say that I love him. So I shook his hand when he said to me to go say goodbye, and I said, I love you, brother. And he goes, much love, brother, much love. He took off. But I think it kind of, oh. But I just wanted to let him know that I saw him, I really acknowledged him, because that's a huge thing to do, to hand back your gang patch. So yeah, respect to him, much love, and yeah.
I really love that.
Yeah. So that happened last night.
Yeah, no, I think it's like when I was listening to your story, you told him that you were proud of him.
Yeah.
And like you're like, I know I needed to say the right thing, but you weren't like, I need to say it long, or like, and you just told him that you're proud of him, and then you asked him like, how do you feel? And then straight after that, you just said you shook hands with him and you told him that you love him. Because sometimes, like, even for me, and it's a big learning for me, when people ask me questions, I have this like long novel to say, and I just appreciate the fact that all you did was just listened. And that's a good thing, especially for women, because we have a lot on our mind, and we always have these we already have answers in our mind. So once they start saying a word, we got keyword, oh yeah, sweet, I'm gonna say that. But like the fact that what you're teaching us, and hopefully all the viewers, is that you literally just have to listen, ask them how they're feeling again, and then reaffirm to them the love that you have for them. So I was just like, oh, what were you gonna say? And
No,
just listening of it was so powerful.
So simple, but so important. Like, listen, acknowledge, and just remind them. And I feel like that's where a lot of us go wrong. Like, we feel like, oh my gosh, we don't know what to say. We have to say this, and this. All they are after is to be heard, Forget that. And a lot of the time we listen to respond, and instead of just listen, just listen, And that's such a cool lesson. And I hope everyone that's listening takes it on board as well. Like, it's the simplest things, honestly.
It's like the closing remarks at church. You know how like the priesthood will get up and then they kind of overthink everything, and then they drag it out like this. The already given all the perfect lessons and points and things, and all they got to do is be like, yep, what they said, instead of trying to make their own things up. It's like, man, we do that. Just it's all. But I think just one thing I did want to point out is, one of the reasons we did want to get you on here is because obviously you are a Samoan male, very manly man, It's not very normal for a Samoan manly man to be so in touch with their feelings, with emotions, with mental health, all that kind of thing. And I just really hope that other manly men out there or whatever can relate and, you know, feel like, and I'm pretty sure they will, feel that they can kind of share their story or, you know, look a little bit more into it. You are allowed to speak. You're allowed to have a voice. You can say what you feel. You don't have to kind of suppress it because, you know, we've seen what happens when people do that. And I love that. And I commend you for all your efforts and your works and everything that you've done, like literally amazing. When we were like, you know, doing our homework and we're like, flip, this guy is like doing this. And, you know, we honestly, we are in awe of everything that you've done. So well done. One question I would like to ask, you said earlier at the beginning, you know, when all this kind of went down, that you felt a bit responsible or you felt guilty for your brother's death. With everything that you have now accomplished and looked at, or, you know, everything that you've unraveled and that kind of thing, are you feeling the same way, or has that really helped you with, you know, with coming to terms with, you know, things that happened with your brother?
Man, you got me on that one. I was gonna cry. And, that's another thing I want to say to other men is it's okay to cry. Yeah, it's okay to cry. I found that hard to do because I didn't show that too often. But with my brother, my main goal was to make sure no one forgot about him. I wanted to make sure that his name echoed throughout the years because he meant so much to us, and I know the same for others who have lost loved ones. So when I did like a haircut for, let's say, a celebrity, I'd make sure I would ask them, hey, can you just give us a shout out? And so when they gave a shout out and said his name, it just hit home for me. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't care about the haircut. I was just buzzing that this person had just said my brother's name. That was one goal, was to honor him and honor my brother, my friend who taught me. And this is an exclusive. I'm going to say it right here and now. I'm actually going to close my barbershop. So, yeah, you heard it here first.
Wow.
So yeah, my wife and I just have decided that we're not just gonna. So for me, the hardest part was letting go of the building, but her helping me understand that that's what it is. It is just the building, but Somis Touch Barbers is me. Anywhere I go, I'm Somis Touch Barbers. So yes, we might be just closing the shop physically, but whenever these clippers are in my hand, my brother and my bro, John Finu, is with me. So yeah, my barbering journey is going to take a switch over to another lane, and still, you know, I'm going to focus on education and sharing. So yeah, you guys have seen, I go into prisons and teach men to cut hair so I can give them an opportunity or a skill, just like my friend gave me. Now we're planning with my other two bros, we're planning on doing a barber tour around the North Island of New Zealand. So that's coming up in February, where we're going to just try and do things different, just take it to the next level. But at the same time, realizing that we're going to close the shop, but as long as those clippers are in my hands, my brother's story is still alive. So if I can say, is he proud of me? I hope he is. But
your brother would
do this for me if I'm gone. You know?
your brother was proud of you before he left.
Oh,
like we were saying that as well. I was like, you know what, your responsibility as a sibling doesn't just end when they go. It's like you constantly, you just carry on their legacy wherever you roam. And I love that you haven't just, if everyone knows Flaxmere, it's a tiny place, and when we talk about opportunities, it's Orchard, Waddies, or a teacher or something, you know. So like you have expanded, like just you've made Flaxmere a bigger place, and people have come out with bigger hearts because of that. And I'm so proud to be from the 8th to the 9th. I haven't forgotten for sure. I just wanted to also say, I love that you have taught your parents. You know, that's the thing. Like a lot of our parents didn't have those tools, and they don't know how to handle those things. And your parents, and I know your dad, he was strong. Like he was a tough man, and but you know, he was always good to me. But the thing is, we're teaching our parents now, and if we consistently do what we need to do, like what you're doing, and you've seriously been such an inspiration to us, especially even more now. Like I've known your whole thing, I've read everything, but just hearing it from you just makes me want to be a better person. Like I want to be part of Soma's Touch, so then everyone that comes across me, like can feel a safe haven. So thank you for that.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah.
I get to say a little bit too now. I think everything that you've done is so inspiring. Honestly, like I never knew your brother. I don't even know you, but I can 100% tell you have honored his name way more than you even think you possibly have. I think just those spaces for anyone else being able to open those so many conversations. You probably have no idea how many lives you've actually saved just by letting them open up to you. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that your brother is looking down on you so proud, whether you carry his name with you on a shop or just in your heart. I think it will always be, you know, with you wherever you go. So thank you so much for having us or being on our platform. It feels like you're having us on your show. We're just sitting here like, oh my God.
And we're like, what?
No, thank you for the opportunity. But can I end with a quote?
Yes.
Yeah, my one of my favorite quotes that's always like stuck with me. Like one of the books that I had. Don't learn how to fly, then turn around and walk home. So I really like that quote because, you know, growing up where we're from, you know, opportunities don't come all the time. So yeah, make the most of what you do have, and yeah, acknowledge the small wins. That's what I really want to do this year is acknowledge the, you know, we're always shooting for big goals, but make sure you acknowledge the small wins on the way there. But yeah, much love. Be good. Be nice to your families, and yeah, if you want my wife on, of course you can have her on. I'll just ask her.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and yeah, all the best with your show.
Thank you so much again to Peleti for joining us on today's podcast. We will put a link to his IG and also links to the barbecues in the description below, along with Boom Bullets. Along with Boom Bullets, no. But yeah, no, just again, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you guys next time on Under the Fala. Bye.
Yeah.
You think I